All right, Dave.
Get a red hole with advertisement.
3.
There's no 3, 2, 1. You're already on.
I'm Jack Worthington.
So here we are. What is this? Episode 5 or episode 4? I think it's episode 4.
Yeah. Are you going to count the first episode as episode 0?
Not counting that first.
It's episode 0. It's prelude.
The prelude. All right. So here we are, Thursday. I think when we mess with the mic a little bit here, make sure it's pointing towards me. I think we got the echo situation figured out. We will find out for sure in this episode with the both of us going. I'm just going to go ahead and share the link to the episode and put it on Facebook and all that good stuff. Otherwise, Dave, how has your week been going so far?
My week, well, you know how my week.
I do know, but I'm not going to post pictures of our living room and shame you.
My week has been going great. I have probably received, what do you figure, about...
Several thousand comic books.
Not several, maybe 1,000.
That are now occupying the living room. You cleaned most of it up.
Yeah,
right?
it's occupied living room.
Yeah.
So I'm, made the big decision to get back into comic book collecting, and since I'm not from, I graduated high school in '88, joined the military in '89, and I
Lost track.
Yeah, lost track. So I have no real idea of what happened in the '90s or after. So I've just been buying lots, through auctions and Craigslist sales and things like that. People just getting rid of their collections, and generally they're picked through, and key issues are gone. But so it's not, it's not like, there's probably value there, but whether I get a Action Comics #1, I highly doubt it.
Is it one of those things where it's like this is like your big moment as an adult to get all of the ones you wanted as a kid?
Shit, the ones. So I have the ones I wanted as a kid. The only one that I want to say, the only one that I didn't get that I wanted when I was a kid, because it was already too expensive, because it had already happened. I think it was in the 70s or 60s, but was Werewolf by Night. Was it number 34, 32 maybe? The Moon Knight's first appearance. Because I was, in the 80s, I was a Moon Knight fanatic.
Yeah, you were telling me, I remember, friends of mine who were into Moon Knight, but I never really was into him myself.
It was just surprising, because, I
wasn't a big Spider-Man fan. That's probably why. Because Spider-Man...
He was more like Batman than Spider-Man.
No, but wasn't he like a Spider-Man character that appeared in Spider-Man?
He did, but that's like saying the Punisher was a Spider-Man character because he made his appearance.
He had his own, but he had his own series, too.
Well, Moon Knight did, too.
Yeah.
So, but it came out later. But yeah, so what happened was, recently I went back home, went back to see my folks and whatnot, and I was like, Mom, do you still have all those comics that I used to collect? She's like, yeah, they're in a box, they're in boxes. So I started going through them, and all of a sudden, it all just kind of came back, and I realized that, I have so many key issues from the 80s.
Mm-hmm.
In the 80s, I don't even know if there's a point in reading comics after the 80s, is there? Has anything happened since 1990?
Some people would say no, the purists out there. I was in a comic store recently, and so I grew up reading comic books in the 1990s, reading Marvel and X-Men and all that. And Marvel has started redoing the comic, basically they're new comic books, but they're in the style of 1993. And I think the comic was even called X-Men 93 or something like that. Harkening back to my generation's nostalgia for the past, and looking at it and reading it, because it's this simulacra of the past.
Yeah.
It hurts my brain to actually flip through the pages. I'm this looks just like what I read as a kid, but it isn't.
Yeah.
Like there's some missing time.
Yeah.
You know, was there like an issue 6.5 that I missed? What is this that I'm holding in my hand? But I don't know. There's some good comics out there.
So what, like in the 90s, what were some, I mean, not titles, I guess, because, you know, I mean, one, I'll tell you, like going through all these comics and trying to sort them out, I am overwhelmed by the sheer number of titles there are now, or at least there have been. Like X-Men has split off so many times, you know, and there are so many Spider-Man now. I mean, they're, you know, going to that comic book shop, like there are 9 or 10 Spider-Man, independent, you know, individual Spider-Man titles. And it's like, how does a person even keep up with it all?
Yeah. Well, that's one of the big criticisms, isn't it? That they restart the series from number 1 all the time, and it confuses the readers.
Yeah. I mean, look, you had comics in the 80s, and probably the 90s, I don't know, but in the 80s that had been running since the 60s.
Yeah, and you were at issue like 585 by Fantastic Four.
So, and now it's like, you know, when I'm going through my all these boxes, I'll see, you know, Spider-Man #1, and I'll get all excited. I'm like, oh, Spider-Man #1. Obviously I know it's not, because I know what the original Spider-Man #1 looks like, because they repeated the image in. Was Spider-Man 82 or 84, the first black suit. So, but then I'll kind of go on the price guide and everything. It's like, holy shit, like there are about 80 different Spider-Man #1s. There are like 8 pages of Spider-Man #1s. You know, it's like a new one every month.
Well, I want to circle back around to the comics, and I have I brought some with me. We'll show off, and you you know, I think maybe next time we'll have to have you bring some of your favorites in.
Yeah, I will.
But
now, see, I have some of the CGC, like some of my favorites. I have a CGC right now,
right?
And I've been waiting. I mean, I've been waiting on them for 5 months now, 4 or 5 months. But it's because I use a pressing service, and that's apparently what holds it up a lot. So
they're like restoring it also.
Well, they don't restore it, because restoring it actually degrades the value. It gets a different. So I don't know if you're familiar with the CGC labels, but when you look at a comics guarantee company, the CGC grading service, you know, they'll slab it. They'll put it in that heavy plastic case to protect it, and there will be a it'll have the grade on like the right hand side, and on the left hand side it'll have, you know, like the title and or whatever, and then there'll be a colored background. And so just the standard colored black background is blue, right? And when it's blue, they're just saying, this is a comic. You know, it's a regular comic. Gold is when it's been signed by somebody, anybody. It doesn't matter who, but they'll say on the thing who it's been signed by. Now, here's the thing, is that a representative CGC has to witness a signature. So it's generally only going to happen like at a con, you know, at some sort of convention, or at a comic book signing where the dealership is part, you know, like...
It's like there has to be like a chain of custody.
It's 100% a chain of custody.
If the glove does not fit.
Correct. Yeah, they will not acknowledge it. And so
they will acquit.
So then what happens is, if that happens, then you get a green slab, which means that that there's been some sort of alteration to the comic book, right? Which kind of devalues it. So a lot of times, like when people are like, oh, you know, I went and got, you know, or I got my comic book signed by so-and-so, it's like, you know.
All right, we'll swing back. We'll swing back around. We're going to meander back around.
Right.
And I should note too, I don't think you guys want to be on camera, but your 2 friends are here. Your old Ranger buddy and his wife.
Yeah. That was actually my sniper partner. He was the senior sniper. He was the old salty. I mean, I'm like, I think 20 years older than him.
He was old Sarge who knew everything about everything.
Yeah. He was the salty guy.
Yeah.
But he was my sniper partner. He taught me everything I know about sniping.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I have a friend like that, Joe, who's mentioned in my book, and he lives in Italy nowadays, and I've been trying to like link up with him for a long time. But terrific guy, like also taught me the ropes, showed me how to, you know, really took me under his wing, showed me a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
You know, he's the guy who taught me how to shoot a pistol.
Yeah.
Like, I didn't know how to shoot a pistol before I went on that deployment with Joe. And he's like, "What are you doing, bro?" And like, showed me. And like, I was really good by the time we got home.
Yeah. Todd taught me how to flying squirrel.
The flying squirrel.
Blew me.
Qualify. No, I'd already because I didn't go to Cypress as a private, so you had to be tabbed already.
Yeah.
To go to the sniper. Oh wait, we did, right? We had to be tabbed to go to sniper.
When you came in,
Yeah.
I was a private.
Yeah. So
Some of us
you had already done all the but I never really had to qualify. Like, I didn't get smoked that much because I was 27 when I went to Ranger Battalion. So everybody's like,
"Who's this old dude?"
yeah, they'd be like, they come out, "Privates, get down." I'm ready to get down. They're like, "Not you, Park. We don't want you having a heart attack. Go back in your room."
So, no, I'm glad you guys came, and I hope you're having fun in the city so far.
Awesome time.
Yeah.
Thanks for hosting.
Absolutely. So, going through, some of the listeners want us to go through, they think we should, or I should stick to doing some like news of the day, what's going on,
Sure.
current events. And I got a few mix of different issues here to talk about.
Yeah.
One of them, have you been tracking some of the controversy with Dave Chappelle's
Yeah.
new?
Of course. How can you not? I mean, I don't even.
His new Netflix special.
Yeah. Yes, of course. People have perpetually hurt feelings.
Yeah.
Right? I mean,
And like, you can't be a comedian anymore.
No.
It's like unacceptable.
no, 100%. 100%. And the thing is that the comedians, I think, who. So, I mean, the edgy comedians now are the ones who insult the right people. You know what I mean? Like, they're like, you can only insult certain people. You can't insult everybody like comedians, used to.
Yeah.
Now there are only certain people you can, make fun of or mock or whatever, or point out their,
Yeah, but Dave didn't play by those rules.
Right. So it's a fall from grace. But people forget. They always forget because this happened to him before.
Well, I mean, I don't think anybody who likes Dave Chappelle, like, I don't think anyone gives a shit.
No.
Really. I mean, at the end of the day, like, comedy is comedy. It's not like a philosophy to live your life by. Like,
But
you go there and laugh and go home.
And I mean, we see that with everything. I mean, I just kind of tie this into comic books real quick, but it's one of the reasons I think the comic book industry is really hurting right now is because there are all these people who are making all these demands on it, but they don't buy comics.
Right.
They don't read
Right.
comics. If you ask them about any popular common arc, that even if you've never read that, the arc because it's just like canon, everybody knows it. They don't know anything about it,
Well, it's like my friend who works in the comic book industry told me, he's like, "Man, I got into comic books because I thought it was really cool that there's this guy dressed up in a Spider-Man costume and he could sling webs and he fought, Green Goblin. But I didn't care who he voted for.
Right.
Like, no one cares who Peter Parker votes for.
Right.
No one.
Right. And that's, I mean, comics and movies and it's not that they can't make you think, because there are definitely comics that make you think,
sure.
but they're also a form of escapism.
And nobody buys a comic book to make a political statement.
Well, I mean, they might buy one, but they're not going to keep buying the series.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They might, like you might get a brigade basically for a single comic to boost its numbers and get it up.
I'll tell you, I don't really watch Netflix anymore.
I don't either.
Not because of it's some political statement, but just because I have, like, if I have free time, I'm probably going to use it to do something else.
Yeah.
But I want to go and watch this Dave Chappelle special tonight.
Yeah.
Just because.
We'll do that.
I want to. Also, the rainforest fire, the forest fire in Brazil this week, and it was like a huge blow up. Everyone freaking out about how the rainforest is burning to the ground and we're not going to have any more rainforest. And it turned out that was basically a huge hoax. There are all these celebrities like sharing pictures of forest fires from other countries from 10 years ago, saying that, we're not going to have any oxygen on planet Earth anymore because there's a forest fire. And this right-wing president of Brazil, he invented forest fires apparently, the way Donald Trump invented North Korea. And it turned out to be like actually the data from NASA studying satellite photographs, and they're like, this is a average burn season.
Yeah. So who was behind the hoax? Was it that pesky hacker 8chan?
I don't think it was behind. I don't think there's any singular person behind it, but it's just one of those things where it's like outrage of the day, daily outrage on Twitter, and it picks up a lot of steam, and people start sharing it, and we're already, you know how it is. We're already on to something else.
Well, wasn't there?
What is it today? Yesterday was the forest fire. What is it? What's going on today?
Oh man, I don't know. I really honestly. I try to stay informed, but I also try to avoid the news. It's a very delicate line to walk.
Yeah. Oh yeah. No, I know what you mean. You don't want to like totally disengage from the world, but at the same time, it's like for the sake of my own mental health, I can't be
right. And look, I think here's the fact: is that if you do completely disengage from the world, like
you're the Unabomber.
But no. Well, yeah. Okay. True. But okay, not completely. But like, what are you really going to miss? Especially if you're watching one of the major networks, you're going to miss like 3 news stories. You're going to miss a lot of speculation. So I don't know. Well, who remember that African leader who all the child soldiers, and there was a big campaign about him.
Oh, you're talking about Coney, Joseph Coney.
Right, and didn't that campaign happen like after he was already like dead? Or
he wasn't dead, but he was marginalized, and he was hanging out. Don't quote me on this. The best information I had was that he was up north of Uganda, in another country. But he was already marginalized. Like the Lord's Resistance Army wasn't really a thing anymore.
Right.
By the time that hit, yeah.
It's funny because a lot of times when I'm talking to different friends of different whatever politically or whatever, and they bring up an issue like the issue of the day. I always ask them like, what did you think about this last week? Because you probably didn't.
Yeah. Well, and we all become like overnight experts, on Greenland. Because that, apparently Trump said something about Greenland, so like everyone's an expert on Greenland for 48 hours.
Right.
And then we forget that there's this massive landmass between us and Europe all over again.
Right. Well, that's why I was named, Greenland. It's always been a psych out.
Well, I was also interested, I just retweeted some articles from, one from Forbes, another from The Atlantic saying like, no, this is nonsense, the rainforest is not, yes, they're forest fires, but it's not burning to the ground, chill out. And the amount of like people get really angry with you, and I am totally for conservationism and protecting the environment and all that, but there's like a weird political ideology around it, and people get very, very emotional if you question any facet of this sort of environmentalist ideology.
It's crazy too because honestly, fires are vital for a forest, for its health, and we're actually probably like harming a lot of forests more by like a lot of the fire containment. Because if you think about all the years before the first like firefighting ability that and whatnot, like. Why aren't our forests gone now? 2,000 years ago, we didn't have bucket brigades and forests would light on fire all the time.
There's like a whole science behind like forest management, and I don't know much about it.
Burns have to happen.
Yeah,
they have to happen.
If you get more and more deadfall, the fire is going to be that much worse when it does happen.
And it's not only that, but as like the forest floor like starts to choke up, things start to grow, strangulate. And the thing is that like when a fire goes through and it burns all of that, it creates nutrients, like this rich soil.
And they have a stronger growth season the next year.
So I don't know, and that's the thing I think right now, and it's not just right now. We can't pretend that it's just the left that has been reactionary because the right is
everyone's reactionary now. Yeah. It's just like part of our culture.
Yeah.
The other thing going down that I saw just today is PLA troops into Hong Kong.
Mm-hmm.
And people have put up pictures on social media, people taking pictures of People's Liberation Army coming into Hong Kong en masse in armored personnel carriers, probably thousands of troops. Looks like they're going to key areas, strategic areas around the city. And the Chinese government is saying, well, this is just a routine transfer of troops. Usually those transfers happen in November, but they have happened in August. I was reading back in 2015, they rotated the troops in August. But this looks like a much larger troop deployment than anything seen previously, as far as I could ascertain, and again seen in strategic locations around the city.
Right.
So this could be like the big clampdown that everyone expected to come.
Sure. Right, and I mean, are there metrics to show that it is larger, or is it just that we're paying attention to it right now?
That's a good point, and I honestly don't know.
And I'm not denying that it's larger. I'm just asking.
It's definitely a large troop deployment, but I couldn't. Is it? Like you said, is it abnormally large? I couldn't necessarily tell you that off the top of my head.
So what? Okay, what do you feel? Because you're somewhat of a policy expert, or at least researched and things like that. What do you feel like the U.S. policy should be if China goes in and clamps down?
Unfortunately, there's not much we can do because Hong Kong was handed over to China by the Brits in I think it was 1999 or 2000. So it is Chinese territory. All we can do is express really our disappointment and solidarity with people fighting for human rights in Hong Kong. Perhaps we can introduce sanctions. There's this ongoing trade war between us and the Chinese. Maybe we're going to ramp up certain trade sanctions. That's the carrot and the stick approach. Like, hey, stop stop running over protesters with tanks, or we're going to put these tariffs in place. That's the best we can do. We're not and nobody thinks that it's a good idea to engage in military hostilities over Hong Kong.
Right.
It's not like the Chinese are invading the Philippines or even invading Taiwan.
Right.
Which that's a whole other issue.
Right.
But yeah, that's about as much as we can do is Hans Bricks, I'm going to write you a very angry letter. Right. But there's
stop, or I'll say stop again.
Yeah. Other than economic restrictions, I don't think we have a whole lot of leverage there, quite frankly.
I mean, that's how I feel too, and I feel as though America's gotten into this habit. I don't know, maybe since the 50s or 60s of drawing these lines in the sand, and with no intent to back it up. You know what I mean? Just posturing because we're America and we're and we expect and it doesn't matter if it's a Democrat or a Republican or whatever. We expect, or not we as in each individual American, but sort of our politicians as an identity, they expect to be obeyed. They expect to be feared, not them personally, but the might of the U.S. military, the might of the economic force, and things like that. And I feel as though every politician that does that has never really been in a fist fight. They've never been in a bar fight, because when you're in a bar fight, that if you draw a line, if you say push me again, and they push you again and you don't do anything, you just look like an asshole. You just you can't say you can't make these statements and these declarations with no intent to back it up. So the idea is don't make them at all. Unless you really truly feel that it's something that you're gonna take them to the mat. Just don't, because and that's one of the reasons why I feel as though America's lost a lot of influence. It's not because of Trump or Obama or Clinton or Bush or whatever. It's not because of a single individual. It's because we don't speak softly and carry a big stick anymore. It's because we got a lot more involved in the world well, 1940, or, First World War.
Since 45.
Yeah, since 45. I mean, World War I, yeah, but then we sort of kind of came back and we rolled it back. But then World War II, we just kind of stayed, right? We stayed everywhere. Yeah. And for a while, we could flex. We could flex militarily, we could flex economically, we could flex, but then we realized that, well, if you're not fighting an army, or if if you're going to go into a situation like Vietnam, or if you're not going to go in to win, and winning costs a lot, and I think that one of the reasons that Korea and one of the reasons that Vietnam happened the way they did is because our military leaders and who grew up during World War II saw what it cost to win a war. When you look at like Hiroshima and Nagasaki and what it actually, and the bombing in Berlin, like what it actually cost to win a war, that's a hard price to pay. It's a hard price to extract from other people.
Sure.
Unless you are 100% committed to this is right and this is just.
Well, interestingly, I mean, once you get past World War II and you move into the Cold War, we had this bipolar worldview of great power competition between the two superpowers, the USSR and the United States. And Vietnam, in so many ways, was really about posturing and proving to our European allies that we weren't going to back down against communism.
Right.
Today, I think, you're right that our foreign policy, both the way we deploy military forces and engage in diplomacy, is so schizophrenic.
Right.
It's absolutely schizophrenic, and you can only imagine both allies and enemies must be like their heads spinning, like what's this country want? I mean, you have like cases of like Saddam Hussein is one where like we're friends with him one day,
right?
We're out to get him. Gaddafi, same thing,
right?
Like, we actually made peace with Gaddafi, more or less. He gave up his WMDs.
Right.
And like, okay, Gaddafi, we're not going to, carpet bomb your country or anything crazy like that. And then, Hillary flipped the switch on that.
Right.
So both enemies and allies, I think, got to like wonder, like, where do I stand with this superpower? That, as you say, that we flex our muscle and we throw our weight around without really considering all of the repercussions. And now, we're moving into a multipolar worldview. You have all of these the BRICS, you have Brazil, Russia, China, you have all these countries that are rising economically, socially, politically. They're becoming much more global in their orientation. I mean, even little countries regionally like the UAE is going around trying to secure ports in the Middle East, and they're going and mucking around in Yemen.
And they're using American mercenaries to do it.
and also Salvadorians and other national. It's interesting how little of that ever hits the news. But yeah, no, I think you're right. And the other thing I wanted to bring up, well, two other things. One was Jim Mattis wrote an op-ed in the Wall Street Journal that came out yesterday, which is, I think it's really just a teaser for his book that he has coming out, his memoir. It's interesting. It talks about how he became Secretary of State, and he did not expect to ever be Secretary of State, at least not now, because he needed a waiver, and he was like, no one's gotten a waiver for this in 50 years. So he didn't think it was going to happen.
And what did he need a waiver for?
Because after you've served in the military, you need to wait 7 years before you can be appointed to be SecDef. So they gave him a waiver so that he could come in and do that. So it's interesting. I mean, if you guys want to go and read that for yourself, interesting reading, and I'm sure his book's going to be interesting. The other one, the big one I wanted to get into that we had talked about previously was old Jeff Epstein committing suicide in his jail cell in a metropolitan Manhattan jail cell, which is we're going a few weeks back now, but like some information has emerged. There's some grist for the mill out there to talk about as far as what happened. So Jeff Epstein, I think everyone watching probably knows who he is at this point.
So if I didn't know who he was, who is he?
Man, it's complicated. So Epstein was supposedly a billionaire. He kind of came from a regular blue-collar family, as I understand it, was a school teacher here in Brooklyn, Then very quickly went to work for a hedge fund or some sort of management consultancy type firm in Manhattan, had this meteoric rise, and after only working there for like a year or two, started his own hedge fund, working exclusively for billionaires.
Mm-hmm.
Now, how do you go from being a school teacher in Brooklyn
Mm-hmm.
to having a hedge fund that exclusively serves billionaires in a few short years?
Yeah, hopefully it's not because he had access to product.
Or, now we understand that he was running blackmail networks, and it makes you wonder how far back in time that was going.
Exactly.
Right? So, where Epstein's wealth really comes from is very difficult to ascertain, and I think journalists and law enforcement are trying to piece that all together now. But it looks like, he blackmailed some very powerful people and was able to extract quite a bit of money and also assets from them. He supposedly had the largest residence in New York City, which is on the Upper East Side over by the Frick Collection near the Metropolitan Museum of Art. Had supposedly the largest residence in New York City.
Who owned it before him?
The CEO of Victoria's Secret.
Fascinating.
Who, don't quote me on this, I believe that guy had to resign because of some of these allegations that are coming out.
Fascinating.
So Epstein hobnobbed with Donald Trump, with Bill Clinton, with Stephen Hawking, with all sorts of powerful and influential people in America and other countries. There are all these links that have come out to Saudi Arabia, to Israel. His madam, alleged madam, Ghislaine Maxwell, the daughter of Robert Maxwell, who's very prominent in a book I read years ago called Gideon's Spies, where Maxwell is alleged to have been a Mossad asset who also did all kinds of odd things. He was also a newspaper magnate, media magnate over in the UK, and he had to resign in disgrace after it came out that he embezzled all this money. And the whole family is very, very interesting. And Maxwell died under very suspicious circumstances. So you start combining all this stuff with Epstein, and I really haven't gotten to the heart of it, is that Epstein ran a human trafficking network of underage girls. In his little black book, I mean, we're talking about dozens and dozens and dozens of underage girls that he was allegedly using for sexual purposes. It was like a pyramid scheme. Like he would, his madam or whoever else would recruit these girls. He would get them to give him sexual massages, and God knows what else. And then he would have the girl like, oh, hey, who else is going to your middle school? If they want to make some extra money, tell them they can come by. And so he was basically operating this sort of pyramid scheme to recruit, an unlimited supply of victims. Mm-hmm. And he was also farming these victims out, pimping them out essentially to British royalty, allegedly, perhaps American politicians, all sorts of prominent people. And then he got this sweetheart deal when some of the girls started fighting back, and it was what's his name, Acosta, who was at the forefront of that and providing him with what can only be described as an incredible legal deal. I mean, he was being charged with soliciting a minor,
right? And
the sentence he was given was that he had to live in jail for a few months, and he could leave during the day and go do his job, and then just come back, sleep in the jail, and then go back.
Right.
He didn't even have to register as a sex offender, but he was after that a convicted pedophile, and he would try to justify it too. He's like, if a person steals a bagel, it's not like they're a hardened criminal. Say things. This is the mind of a psychopath. Like you really think he really thought that he had not done anything wrong.
Right.
Like why are you mad at me? What's the big deal?
Yeah.
And we could talk on and on about this. He had a framed picture, a portrait of Bill Clinton wearing a dress, and it was the first thing you would see when you went into his.
Was it Monica Lewinsky? It was a blue dress.
It was Monica Lewinsky's dress that Bill was wearing in this painting.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, that's what it was alluding to.
Right.
And what's the sign to anyone who walks into Epstein's residence? I got Bill by the balls. Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that if you start connecting the dots, it's not implausible to infer that Epstein may have been working or colluding with Saudi and Israeli intelligence. Once you have a blackmail network, the amount of leverage that you have, because supposedly there were videotapes, he would debrief the girls afterwards, and the amount of leverage he would have over very powerful people is, maybe unprecedented.
Right.
So, Me Too happens. It becomes a little bit more acceptable for women to come forward and say, this happened to me, this scumbag abused me. And it was a journalist, I can't remember her name off the top, Julie Brown at the Miami Herald, did a huge expose on Epstein and all the stuff that I was just talking about. And that spurned a renewed federal investigation and actual criminal charges, federal charges are coming down on Epstein at this point. He flies back from Paris, lands in New Jersey, the feds slap handcuffs on him, and he is charged with, I can't remember, I don't have the charge sheet in front of me, but he's charged with all kinds of sexual abuse, sexual assault, all that stuff, and put in a lockup, metropolitan prison here in New York City. And he makes a suicide attempt, but he's taken to the clinic or hospital or whatever, he survives. A couple weeks go by, and he successfully kills himself. And now there's just so much weird stuff around the circumstances under which he died. And just one thing that's the 2 security cameras that would have shown us what was going on around the cell at the time, both of them were malfunctioning, not working.
Right.
And then you have the issue, you had mentioned it to me, and I went and I looked it up, that a couple of bones in his neck were broken. And usually when somebody hangs themselves with suicide by hanging, I went and did some research on this. Sometimes the bones in the neck are broken, but not all the time.
Right.
The specific bone that he had broken in his neck is more normally associated with homicide by strangulation. And you can to create the ligature marks that are caused by hanging are very easy to fake. So after you strangulate someone, you can put a noose around their neck and drag them across the floor, and it creates ligature marks on their neck, very similar to as if they had committed suicide by hanging. So the medical literature is a little split on this, like whether or not bones break when you hang yourself. But we can say, I think, it's not common for the bones to break.
Well, I know that, look, 2 cameras in a prison that are watching one of the most important people in prison can be out. It happens. But I'm sure that, while, dying of asphyxiation generally is not a quiet process, you know what I mean? So I'm sure the guards must have heard something and gone in to see what happened.
Interestingly, they were asleep.
What? You don't say.
Yeah.
Both of them. But they were both like qualified guards, right?
I think, what was it, one of the 2? One of them was unlicensed, right?
Yeah. One of them, I don't know his whole story, but one of them wasn't even a legit, I don't know what that, I've heard a couple different stories, so I don't know. So, now, another interesting thing is, apparently he hung himself from the top bunk.
Right, so it would not be a big fall.
Okay, the top bunk isn't a fall. You know what I mean? He would have to. So when you look at why in a hanging, right? I think a certain percentage of people, and when they're hung, not at home or whatever, but in a hanging, they die of a broken neck, almost instantly.
Yeah, Old West hangings.
Yeah, exactly.
They drop you 6
right.
feet. Yeah.
Now, there's a reason that if you're gonna hang yourself from a tree or whatever in Minecraft, or whatever, if you're gonna, you know what I mean, if you're gonna commit something, there is a reason why you stand on something and then kick it out.
Right.
And the reason is because when you don't have air, your body, it is almost impossible to kill yourself by strangulation if you have any other option. Your body fights against it so hard. And it's the same thing, I mean, have you ever been like choked out like with a rear naked choke?
Mm-hmm.
Like in those moments when you're getting choked out, like every fiber of your body is firing off, and you're doing everything you can. So the idea that you are not actually hanging. So he didn't die by hanging. He died by leaning, right? He died by because he could still reach the ground.
And I think he was a tall guy too.
Right.
I'd have to check on that.
That's what I'm saying.
I think he was over 6 feet.
Is it he either had to keep his knees up or he had to lean forward. Like he had to do something. But there gets a point in time where the survival mechanism gets so strong. I don't know that you can overcome.
It's like I had someone tell me about people who try to kill themselves by jumping off of a building, and your body has a physiological reaction. Like it's not just psychological or mental. It's like your body is telling you like danger, danger, don't do that.
Well, it's like trying to touch your eyeball.
Yeah,
it's just hard to do. And
I wear contacts.
And when you don't have air, when you're being choked, like it is so
uncomfortable. It's your body telling you need air.
Your body is fighting against everything. It is overriding every system in you. So the idea, like, all right. So he's leaning. He's hanging himself from the top bunk. He's a tall guy. So he's leaning, or did he like try to throw his feet out and sit?
He's just pulling like one of these numbers, like.
Okay, and if he did that, how did he generate so much force to break the bones in his neck?
Yes.
You know, like.
Good question. Good question.
So it was death by leaning. He leaned himself to death.
And he broke bones in his neck.
bones in his neck.
Specifically the bone that is known to break when someone is strangulated to death.
Right.
Or strangled to death.
The cameras are out, the guards are asleep. I mean, like, I'm not a fan of conspiracies. You know, like, anytime people start talking about all the 9/11 conspiracies and things like it, look, it takes so much to actually, I'm not saying conspiracies don't exist, but especially some sort of government conspiracy or whatever, like, it takes so much.
That's why it's like so, and I definitely have an interest, like, once in a while the black helicopters are real. Like, Iran-Contra was a real conspiracy. I mean, it was a criminal conspiracy.
Sure.
Operation Gladio, as is commonly known in Europe, another thing. I mean, it was a NATO intelligence operation that went very much awry. So once in a while, it turns out the black helicopters are real. And I'm kind of allergic to conspiracy theories also. I mean, because, I've worked as a journalist, we were both in the military. People often make inferences based on inferences,
right,
in order to make a conspiracy real,
right,
in their minds. But in this case with Epstein, I have to say that there's multiple. First, the criminal conspiracy that Epstein ran was real, so we know that much. But now the secondary conspiracy of his suicide, like there's something not right there.
Well, and the other part of that was the conversation that the journalist had with his bodyguard.
With the Russian.
Yes.
Yeah. The MMA guy.
Yes.
And you guys should go find that too. I don't have the link offhand.
I don't recall what it was. But if you can Google that.
But as a journalist interviewing the Epstein's bodyguard / personal trainer, and he had all kinds of interesting things to say.
And also, like, on the psychologist, like, hey, don't ask about this. Hey, you're like, stop. Like, I'm doing this for you. Don't ask.
Yeah.
So, or you might end up hanging yourself. You might end up leaning yourself to death.
I personally like it. Just making like a gut reaction off of it. I don't necessarily think Epstein was murdered, but I think somebody paid off the guards and was like, and the guards basically went to him and like, hey, I had a long day. I'm going to go catch a nap. I'll come check on you in 2 hours, You'll be all right, right? And then went and did his thing. And Epstein, he had already tried to kill himself once. He knew what was expected of him and what he was supposed to do. And considering the amount of powerful people that he had compromised, and perhaps the amount of powerful people who had Epstein in their pocket as well, if he really was working for a couple of foreign intelligence services, I'd be scared too.
See, I don't. See, that's not how I see it. And this is why first off, can we both agree that he was probably at least somewhat sociopathic?
Epstein?
Yeah.
I think he's a straight psychopath.
So I don't think a psychopath is going to kill himself. I really don't. Like I feel like, especially a narcissistic psychopath, like they're the most.
I would normally agree. I would normally agree.
The second part of that is Epstein had powerful enemies his entire life, but here's what I believe Epstein had. Epstein had dirt, and Epstein could tell people, look, anything happens to me, and all these packages are going out.
Yeah.
These packages are going out to these people.
That's why he was untouchable.
Right.
For so long.
These packages are going out to these people. So it doesn't matter who it was, whether it was whether it was Mossad or who agency or politician, whomever it was. He basically had a dead man's trigger. A dead man's switch.
Yeah.
So I think that what was that fire that happened at his house, was that real? Because there was a story about the fire that happened at his house on the island when he got arrested.
I vaguely remember something about that. I would have to go check that.
Yeah, I mean, I saw stories about it, but the thing is, like, I don't trust anything that I see from it's so much circular reporting now that you'll see a story in 3 or 4 different, from 3 different sources, and they're all
from the same source.
And the thing is, a lot of times they're sourced from some blog, they're where they're getting.
You do have to be careful.
Yeah. So I don't know if it was legitimate or not, but and I honestly didn't care enough to follow up on it. I had comics to collect, but the thing is that if
somebody here commented as the bodyguard's name, Igor Zinaviv.
Wasn't he in a Street Fighter? Zinaviv? Zara? No.
He was a great UFC fighter, and Frank Shamrock or Ken Shamrock?
Both of them. Frank Shamrock.
Is there a Frank Shamrock?
Yeah, they're brothers. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Frank Shamrock suplexed him into unconsciousness. Yeah. I would normally agree with what your point that a psychopath is not going to kill themselves because psychopaths think they are far more competent than they actually are.
Right.
They think they can lie their way out of anything.
Right.
I think with Epstein, he had hit rock bottom and he knew that the game was over, and he knew one way or the other he was going to end up publicly disgraced,
right,
and or end up like what was alleged to have happened to Robert Maxwell, which as I recall is like a boating accident or something like that.
But and again though, so the thing is that something happened. Something had to have happened to have had the power transfer, right?
Yes, I agree.
Either somebody had to have found his stash, if there was one. Somebody had to have found it and said, look, you're done, or
somebody had him by the balls at that point.
Well,
more than just the feds is what you're getting.
No, I don't. Well, I don't think they have him by the balls because you can't really have him by the balls. Like somebody was involved that was clean. Somebody was involved, whether it was, Barr or the agent who arrested. I don't know, or Trump. I don't know who, but somebody was involved that was clean and would not be threatened, dissuaded. You know what I mean? That he had nothing on and he knew it. So if he did kill himself,
possible.
Then because if
I'd like to think there are some good guys out there.
Well, I mean, look, we're all, we all have our thing, but for most of us, it's not, something so vile. You know what I mean?
I generally have a pretty good opinion about the FBI. I mean, they make mistakes, of course, but I've known people in the FBI over the years, and mostly they're good people. Of course, I wish this case had been investigated properly and prosecuted properly the first time.
Yeah.
But this time around, I think he wasn't going to beat the charges this time around.
Okay, so let me ask you a question, and this isn't a gig on the FBI because it's true. There are great people in every organization, but when you look at sort of an organizational mentality, right?
Mm-hmm.
Sort of the groupthink of an organization, and again, this isn't saying anything about the people in it because at the end of the day, it doesn't matter if somebody's NYPD or
well, the groupthink originates from the individuals inside the organization.
Well, it's also sort of enforced, right? Like when you go to a Ranger Battalion, then it's like no hooligans or brigands. Well, I mean, like there are things that you do take on board, and it becomes sort of a cultural thing.
Yeah, it's
right?
like the collective unconsciousness of the institution. Being
Correct.
expressed.
Yes. So when you were going out on combat operations, if an FBI agent,
We did have FBI agents with us sometimes.
right, and did you like that?
I didn't mind.
Oh, I never would have wanted to go out with the FBI. I wouldn't mind going out with the DEA agent.
Because they weren't like getting up in our business or anything like that. That's not what they were there for.
So here's the thing that always made me nervous around the FBI is they were there for a job, to prosecute the legal aspects of the war on terror. Just like, NYPD was, everywhere too. Not really doing any of the direct action stuff, but, for like investigative stuff, like they were down in Gitmo when we were there and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But the thing is, and it's not the FBI, and it's not the people in the FBI, because there are a lot of, great men and women, like great hard chargers, right? But, and it's not the people who are fighting the war are doing illegal things. But the FBI has sort of this group thing of being sticklers for, I don't know. They kind of have a reputation of having a stick up their ass. You know what I mean?
Well, they kind of have to because they're
Right.
cops and they're federal cops.
Well, they're federal cops, and they're white collar cops for the most part.
Not necessarily.
Well, for the most, that is their.
So, the feds deal with like kidnappings and all. In this case, they're dealing with like human trafficking across international lines. Those aren't white collar crimes.
That's true. But they're still look. I didn't want to use that.
Mafia.
I don't want to use that.
I was lucky enough to interview this dude Ken, who worked in Brooklyn going after the Italian mob back in the 70s and 80s.
Okay, those are the guys and gals. Those are the people that you hear about. How many? And I don't know this. How many agents are there compared to accountants and analysts and you know what I mean?
There aren't that many FBI agents, I believe.
Right.
I hesitate to say a number because somebody out there is going to come back on me, but I think it's like less than 2,000. There's not that many FBI agents.
I'll just tell you that I've met. I don't know. You
had a bad experience. You have a bad date with the FBI, Dave. What happened?
I would just prefer, if I were going to go out and there was going to be law enforcement there, I'd prefer it to be DEA. They were just, that was just, and again, there are a lot of Rangers that we know, right, that have gone to the FBI and whatnot. It's not, this isn't against the FBI at all. Anyway, let's get off this topic.
I got your number, Dave.
I know.
So did the feds.
I know. I know. Call my lawyer. So anyway.
yeah. They're going to come banging on the door.
And again, like I said, it's nothing. Everybody's doing their job. That's like if you talk about, everybody's doing.
You're saying you're uncomfortable with the FBI being involved in the prosecution of a war overseas.
Yes,
that's what you're getting at.
And on combat ops, where they might have a different opinion about a situation than I do.
Well, all I can offer on that. Are you aware of the FBI ever coming forward and be like, I saw something on this combat operation what these guys did is fucking illegal and they don't need to be prosecuted?
No.
Neither have I.
Yeah. No,
I've never once heard that. And I know almost for a fact that FBI agents have seen illegal activities taking place over there.
What are you talking about?
I know it may shock and offend some, but I know they've seen that stuff. I know they're aware of it. But those are basically like...
And if you're in the FBI and I'm totally wrong, I apologize. Like, this is just, I've never worked for the FBI. This has just been my impression.
I know where he lives.
Yeah.
Any other news items that you wanted to cover?
Well, we saw something interesting today, but we haven't read the article, so there's not much to talk about.
What did we see interesting?
About a potential affair.
Oh, yeah, I didn't read the article. Well, it's the whole thing with Ilhan Omar that she is supposedly having an affair with somebody on her staff. And what's coming out, that guy on her staff is going through a divorce with his wife, and there's stuff coming out in the divorce proceedings that's like going public. And that's what's being published in the papers now.
Fascinating.
Yeah, we live in tumultuous times.
It's fascinating. I mean, there are more than enough people on YouTube, ranting about various things. And I don't mean ranting in any kind of like derogatory way. I mean, there are times when I think rants are completely acceptable.
Well, it's again, there's lots of ins and outs we could cover, but it's interesting to me. Like somebody like Donald Trump can get caught like red-handed having an affair with a porn star, but because of the way he's presented himself,
you don't expect anything.
You don't expect
anything more out of the guy.
Right, exactly.
You're like, of course he is.
But for a politician that holds themselves up as some sort of like moral paragon,
right,
or something like that, the fall is much harder.
Well, and the thing is, what's funny is, we saw this a lot with Republicans during like the 80s and 90s.
Going after Clinton.
Well, it's not just going after Clinton, but when they were really tied to the religious right, and they were really...
Oh, they're still tied to the religious right, buddy.
But what I'm saying is, back then, it was all about family values. It was all about, it was
moral majority.
It was the moral majority and all this stuff. It was very puritanical, right? And so they would get caught in these scandals all the time because...
Getting caught in a truck stop with another man.
Right, right. And the reason it got so big was because of how hypocritical they were. Like Clinton, honestly, had Clinton not perjured himself,
it would have
gone right away. Because everybody's like, of course Clinton's doing that. Everybody knows Clinton's doing that. He's that guy, and he's the dude you want to hang out with. Like, I have friends who, were, like on a Secret Service detail, and they would talk about, they love the guy. Like he would come down.
Everyone says that. Yeah. That he would like come down and make a sandwich for the guys.
Yeah, and hang out. So when you're just like, oh, he was having sex with an intern or getting blowjobs for an intern, he's like, and Kennedy was having sex with Marilyn Monroe. Of course, the world's most powerful person. You look at Marilyn Monroe, and then I mean,
it's like a different time, man. I mean, like Bill couldn't even fess up to smoking marijuana.
Yeah.
I mean, I didn't inhale, like that whole thing.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, by the time we got to Obama, at least he was like, yeah, I did drugs. So I wasted a portion of my youth. I shouldn't have done that. Right. But we all moved on from that.
But what I'm saying is that what's happening to the left right now is what was happening to the right.
The moral purity.
Because it's the puritanical values that they were trying to enforce on other people, and but we're all human, so nobody can live up to that stuff. Anyway.
Nobody can pass.
Nobody can pass that test. No.
Yeah.
So it's just I don't know. It's just it's funny to see how the power of the balance, how it shifts.
Yeah. No, I agree.
And it'll shift again. Like there's never going to be an end until whatever. It's just going to keep on,
cannibalizing itself.
Yeah. Well, every generation will grow up not wanting to be the generation before it, so it'll swing out.
Somebody commented, "You're going to compare Monica Lewinsky to Marilyn Monroe? Bill Clinton couldn't even hold JFK's jock."
I would venture. I would say. I mean, first off, Marilyn Monroe was like
An icon.
an icon. But secondly, I'm sure that Bill was doing just fine, and there are just names that didn't come out. I mean, it wasn't. I don't want to say this because I don't know. Maybe I heard it one time, and I don't know if it's true or not. But I heard that Elizabeth Hurley might have been on that list.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I do not know.
Yeah.
I do not know.
And I don't remember where I heard that from, and it might have just been a rumor site. So I don't know that's true. I'm not saying that's true.
Yeah.
But so Monica's the one he got caught with, and and so everybody's like, But then we had I don't know. But I would say that he probably did okay.
Yeah. It makes you wonder, man, because both Trump and Bill are caught up with the Epstein thing, but I mean, what we know about both of those guys is they seem like they are into adult women and like that's their thing.
Yeah.
But then again, I mean, you get Bill down there, you get a couple drinks in him, he sleeps with a girl, and then afterwards, oh yeah, she looks like she's 19, but actually...
Well, here. I mean, I think there are a couple things. One, I think we have to clarify that Trump never went to that aisle.
No, he was not on the aisle.
Right.
No.
Trump distanced himself from
at a certain during the first when it came out, and he became a convicted pedophile.
Yeah.
Yeah. At that point, Trump distanced.
But I don't even think they really. I mean, look, billionaires are going to run in the same circle. So there's association, but I mean there are stories of Epstein getting kicked out of Mar-a-Lago
after the conviction.
Okay.
Yes. But before that, there's quotes of like Donald Trump saying, "Oh yeah, Epstein, he likes the girls very young."
See, but I think I don't know because I don't want to defend Trump, but I want to try to. I'm
not saying that Trump was involved in illicit illegal activities.
But
that's not.
But I sort of think like. Maybe, and I could be wrong, maybe in Trump's way, still have to run in that circle, still have to be part of it, that was his way of like signaling to people, hey, he likes young girls. Like, I can't come out and say this because I have to do business with these people, like, whatever, but he likes young girls.
Yeah,
I don't know.
That's a little bit too much of the 4D chess for me. I don't believe that Trump is sending us like QAnon's, hidden messages.
No, I don't think that is
his dialogue.
I really think you should at some point read The Art of the Deal, right? And the only reason I say that is because, like, I think that, Trump has a certain type of intelligence, just like Clinton and Obama. Like, they all have a certain type of it.
He's a kind of like, he's a hustler, basically.
Yeah. So the thing about a hustler is they have to sort of stay ahead, right?
Yeah.
I don't think that he's, I don't know about 4D chat. Like, I don't think he's planning shit out or stuff. Pardon me. I don't think he's planning stuff. Like, look, I don't take anything away. Like, I can, as much as like Saddam was a horrible human being, like Saddam had a craftiness about him in a way that,
but you're still making this like special exception for him. Like, if it came out that I was hanging out with a pedophile, like a high-end pedophile, and I was making comments in like Vanity Fair, like, oh yeah, he likes them real young, like you wouldn't be like, oh, what Jack was actually saying and what he meant. You'd be like, no, that guy Jack, fuck him. It would be a totally different reaction.
I don't know, Jack. I would want to know, like, what are the circumstances? Like, I don't
really
know.
You think people would be like, I need to know what the circumstances are behind Jack's comment? You'd be like, fry that
motherfucker. What do you think Trump could have done? He could have gotten him arrested.
I'm not saying that that like Donald Trump should have like tied like a red armband around his head and gone in there with an M60 and shot Epstein like Rambo 2. Right. I'm not saying that.
So, but I don't think he was hanging out with him.
He was hanging out with him. That's a fact.
Like, how much? Like, they were hanging out at each other's houses? They were going on trips together?
There's video of them like hanging out together.
At a club where a bunch of people went to? Like, that's what I'm asking you. What is it a video of them in a living room, like, hanging out, like, with a bunch of chicks? Like, that's what I'm asking. Or is it just, like, a video of them, like, in, in Studio 54?
They're not in Studio 54, but they did meet in social settings and they knew each other.
That's not hanging out. Is it?
You can look at the video for yourself.
Okay, I mean, I will.
Friendly
I'm not.
terms and
Again, I'm not
conditions.
trying. I mean,
And I'm also not saying that means Trump is guilty of anything.
Right. Well, and here's the other thing is I think I agree with you about Clinton too. I don't. Even though Clinton went down there a lot, I would be really surprised if like he were involved in all that stuff. I think that there were other women down there for Clinton. You know what I mean?
Could be.
I think that like he didn't have to go down there to partake in Epstein, especially. He could have gone down there just to go.
It could also just be like one of those classic blackmail traps where like, yeah, the girl's 16, you just tell Bill that she's 23.
Well, that could
you know
be
what
too.
I mean?
Yeah, that could be too.
And hence Bill in the Monica Lewinsky dress on the portrait in Epstein's house. That's how you get there.
Yeah, I mean, we don't know what.
Yeah, we don't know.
We don't know what any of these people are into. You know, like we don't know what's inside somebody's head. I mean, but you're right. Like Bill does not like if I had to guess, and I could be right or wrong, but if he were flying down there, I'd be surprised to find out that it was
that he was going down
for
there
that purpose. I believe he was going down there for that purpose, but. He had his own setup. He had his own arrangement.
Could have been.
I
mean, I don't think any of us think he was going down there and playing Monopoly with Jeff Epstein, though.
No. Look, Bill is one of the most recognizable human beings on the planet. Where else can he go to liaise? You know what I mean? With women without somebody saying, "Oh." So he went up to a hotel room, or he went, like, where else can the dude go?
Yeah.
So, anyway.
All right. You want to turn it to a more lighthearted note?
Let's do it.
All right. We do have some more comic book stuff to get into.
Let's do it.
All right. This is one here that my friend, he writes under the name James Powell. And I've interviewed him a bunch of times, and we'll have him on this live stream at some point. He was a former ops officer, really cool guy, and he lent me.
What's an ops officer?
A CIA operations officer.
I see.
Just super cool guy. And he gave me these comic books he had that. This is number 3. So where's number 1, 2? Here it is. Yeah, here we go. This is the first one. Let me show it so that people can see here.
Injustice. So, Injustice, God's Among Us. That tells us a lot, I think. No, and I'm not being facetious, because I think that, like, when I was growing up, and we talked about this at the comic store. When I was growing up, based on the cover, you knew what was in the issue. Mm-hmm. If in was it the Spectacular Spider-Man? If the tarantula who makes his debut, right, is jumping, is trying to kick, Spider-Man, that the tarantula and Spider-Man are going to fight, and a lot of times there was even dialogue, but the dialogue goes back a little bit further. But these days, like when you walk through it. I mean, the art on the covers are beautiful now, but I mean, you have no idea what's inside that issue, because there's nothing indicating it. This, I mean, God's Among Us, it makes me think that, because I have not read this series, but it makes me think that, obviously the superheroes are, claiming power.
Yeah. So this series is apparently based off of a video game, actually, that I never played. But the comic book itself is like minor spoiler alerts for people out there, but the gist of the comic is that Lois Lane is murdered, and it makes Superman, like, he's just fed up and pissed off with all the bullshit and all the crime and both the supervillains and everything else going on, and he goes authoritarian. So he becomes this like totalitarian type person, and
like a benevolent dictator.
Kind of.
Yeah.
It like starts with good intentions,
right,
and starts escalating and getting worse and worse as time goes on. And Superman says, "Look, we're going to use our powers now to completely just like drop the hammer. We're going to put an end to crime. We're going to interfere in the affairs of human beings. Their little experiment in democracy has its limits. So we're going to end the wars for them. We're going to enforce the peace. We're going to beat the crap out of criminals and basically eliminate crime and war.
So he goes all Daenerys Targaryen on him.
Right. Essentially, yeah. And what happens is like the Justice League kind of splits in two at that point because Batman is obviously opposed to Superman, opposed to this alien that is going to impose his will on all of humanity. And it doesn't feel that that's the role of the Justice League. So everyone starts choosing sides, and Batman ends up becoming like an insurgent leader, essentially.
So let me ask you a question though. Was Batman's issue that he was an alien imposing his will on humans, or that he was a person imposing his will on humans?
It's kind of like a classic like authoritarian versus anarchy, or like libertarianism versus totalitarianism sort of argument that Batman is like, our job is to try to balance the scales and give the human race a fighting chance, but it's not to impose our will and like run people's lives for them.
Right.
So that's kind of like the like undercurrent of the comic, I guess. And I don't know, it was really good. I read this one, number 1, and then there's year 2 and year 3, and they each character kind of has a subplot, and each collection kind of like goes off on a different branch. Like when you get to year 2, it's about the Green Lantern Corps getting involved. So now it's like the Galactic Federation is coming in and be like, Superman, you can't be doing this shit. This is wrong. So there's Superman and his posse square off against the Green Lanterns, and Batman's there trying to manipulate the situation, of course.
Right.
And then year 3 gets more into like magic, like John Constantine and Swamp Thing and some like the magic users.
John Constantine was one of my favorite characters.
Constantine's cool. He's a salty bastard.
Oh yeah.
He's a good character.
Oh yeah.
And that one we were looking at today, Batman. What is it called? Damned. It's the series that's going on now. I showed you the comic today.
Oh right. Was it Damned?
I think it's called Damned.
Yeah.
Constantine's a big character.
Oh, is he?
Also, yeah.
Did this come out in independent issues that they created trade paperbacks?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
What year did it come out? When it was in not for the trade paperback, but what years was the actual story?
I actually am not sure, and so this also goes up to Injustice year 5, and now they're also publishing Injustice 2. So this is a long series.
Right. Now, is this one of your favorite series? Would you say that? Or?
I'd say it's amongst my favorite. It's like an alternate history of the DC universe.
So what about it appealed to you? Like, what did you like? What hooked you about it?
I think it's like it explores like what could be like a natural progression of like you have all these powers, but people are still being murdered and all this horrible stuff is happening.
Right.
Wouldn't you do something about it?
Right.
You know.
Take care, guys. Later. Well, I mean, it gets into the whole slippery slope thing, right? I mean, it's like when people talk about corrupt police, it's like, police officers are just human beings, and we are all susceptible to the daily temptations. And what happens is like, I imagine that if you go into a place, when you're a rookie cop and somebody, gives you a cup of coffee, you're like, no, it's okay. No, take the coffee. Oh, okay, I'll take the coffee. And then, for years you take the coffee or you take the donut or you take the, and then we just, like something that used to be, weird for us becomes normal.
Right.
And I mean, that can happen to CEOs. It can happen to anybody in any situation, not just for,
Because you start to rationalize what you're doing.
Well, look, anything that happens.
The ends justifies the means.
Well, it's just about whatever's in our life right now becomes normal. I mean, if you're in an abusive relationship, like that becomes your new normal, and like you forget what it was like to be outside of that. You know what I mean? So whatever it is, whether it's sort of the corruption or the new normal or what becomes normal, just so. If you were Superman, because if you imagine I didn't know Lois Lane died, and he's Superman.
Yeah.
And I guess in this one, he can't fly around the world, the Earth, and make time go backwards.
There hasn't been any time travel as of yet.
In order to save her or whatever. So you are the most powerful being, maybe not being, but at least person on Earth.
It's like a question of like how much good is too good.
Right.
Like do you get down and like micromanage people's lives for them to keep them safe?
Right. And it's one thing when you're making that decision without any personal involvement. It's another thing when the woman you loved or whatever is killed and you had the power, and you would have had the power to stop it. Yeah. Yeah. Because that's something that I think everybody can like ask themselves, like, if I had this power and this happened, what would I do?
And then the other one I wanted to show real quick here is this one. I saw this on Kickstarter like months ago, and I couldn't pass it up. And you can see from the cover why I couldn't pass it up. Commando Ninja. And it's about these guys who are like LRPs in Vietnam. They're like a recon team or something. Except this is like weird Vietnam where there's like dinosaurs there and ninjas and shit like that. And it's intentionally like a 1980s retro kind of like throwback setting, I guess you could say. And it's just funny as fuck. I mean, all the like jokes about like America and communists, and there's the one guy on the team who's like a hillbilly, and he's making constant like homophobic remarks and jokes and stuff like that. But then like he has these Freudian slips when he's talking about like the other guy on his team about like stroking his shaft or something like that. And he's like, what the fuck?
That's funny. So we didn't talk. I mean, we talked a little bit about what we would talk about tonight, and comics that were meaningful to us or whatever. And I was kind of thinking about things and what I loved about 80s comics and the 80s and blah, blah, blah. I didn't know you were bringing this, and it's funny that you did because...
Zombie Kong!
Of course.
Zombie Kong. Because you have to get this comic.
With Ninja? Yeah, absolutely. So what's that again? Who put that out? Do they still have funding going for this or another project?
I actually don't know. I think they're a French company. It says Old Skull Comics.
Okay.
Name of the company, and I believe they're out of France. And I mean, it's awesome. It's just a fucking amazing comic book. Like they're flying away in this helicopter here, and where is it? The bad guy, the bad ninja. Fuck you, Americans. Fuck your freedom and fuck your way of life. It's just got like dialogue like that. It's just like laughing my ass off. But yeah, I don't
like a Team America vibe.
In a lot of ways, yeah. I don't know if you can like go on their website now that like I said, this was like a Kickstarter comic book that I saw it, and I was.
And there are a lot of great projects going on Kickstarter and Indiegogo. Like if you're not finding anything that you like in the shops, definitely go on and
there are like you said, tons and tons of indie comics that you can buy as like PDF files.
Yeah.
What was the other one I was reading, which is like super like explicit? Hold on, I'll look it up here.
Real quick. Was it like naughty?
Yes. Here it is. This comic book called Rags.
Okay.
And I think Rags is because the protagonist's name, she's like this redhead girl named, I think her last name is like Ragowski or something like that, so it's called Rags. And she is running around post-apocalyptic America, getting chased around by zombies, and she is like in her underwear the entire time.
Of course she is.
Makes sense, right?
Right.
Makes sense. And I read a couple of those comics, and they were pretty funny.
Yeah. Do you feel as though,
and that's another indie comic.
Do you feel as though there was a theme, or do you feel that in the 90s, like the 90s comics, that there was like a theme to them, or that there was like, what made 90s comics different than 80s comics?
Well, I'm not super familiar with 80s comics.
Okay.
I think 90s comics were a product of like a couple of different things. Like culturally is a question of like, where are we? Like now that, the Cold War is over, what are our concerns? What are we worried about? What's going on in the world? And X-Men specifically was a comic book that a lot of it was about racism. Like the mutants are the other, they're the outsiders.
Right, yeah.
And there's all these protesters, hey mutie, get in the back of the bus.
Yeah, I mean the mutants have been that sort of the social barometer for a long time. And actually Heroes for Hire, they kind of dealt with a lot of that stuff.
And then the Punisher was a play up, I think, in the 1990s, a play on the idea that crime was just going to continue to expand, like geometrically. Like there were these movies like Demolition Man.
Great movie, man.
What was the movie? Oh shit! It takes place on the last day of the century. Is the
where
Angela Bassett is in
it. 100%. Man, she looks. Woo. She was just.
Yeah.
She looks so good.
And Ralph Fiennes.
I keep on getting it confused. Like in my brain,
I think it's End of Days.
It is End of Days was the Schwarzenegger movie, and I keep on thinking Johnny Mnemonic. It was End of Days was Schwarzenegger. It was it Last Days?
Let's see, Last Days movie. No, there's a 2005 film popping up.
No, what was it called? It's a good.
Angela Bassett. Sorry.
Yeah, she's actually the bodyguard in it, or she's like the security pro. She's just bad.
And it's filmed by. The name is on the tip of my tongue. The director is the woman who did Zero Dark 30.
Okay.
All right, let's see. I'm going down into her movies. I will find it, damn it. Oh, no, I won't. Here. Check out IMDb. It'll be on there. But anyway, what I was referencing with those films was that in the 90s, there was this idea that crime was just going to get worse and worse. Strange Days.
Oh, yeah.
Strange Days.
Yeah.
That it was just.
I was thinking last. Yeah.
That the crime. And same thing in Demolition Man. That crime was just going to get more and more and more out of control.
Well, and the other thing, what else did they call? Every restaurant would be Taco Bell. They saw the
consolidation.
The consolidation of the corporatization of wow. Yeah.
So I think,
and the political correctness.
Yes.
100%.
And I think the Punisher in the 1990s was a riff off of that.
Yeah.
That we were going to need this costume, these vigilante out there just mowing down criminals in the streets.
I think part of that, some of that came from the 70s and continued to grow, because you had the Dirty Harry movies, Charles Bronson movies. You had a lot of the vigilante movies that sort of they were all grindhouse. You know what I mean? They were all
Dave, there are also, to my shock, there are people in here asking, who is this guy? Who's your guest?
Oh, hi.
So let me just reintroduce Dave real quick. I'm sorry, you want to finish your thought first?
No.
Okay.
No. I think that was him.
Dave is a former Ranger, former Navy diver, Marine reservist for 6 months or something.
No, a year.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
You got your year in.
Yeah.
And a former contractor, and since then you've gotten involved in improv,
acting. I did 2 commercials this year. I write, I read.
And if you go back 2 episodes, we talk much more about your professional background.
Yeah.
So anyway, back to the zeitgeist of the 1990s. What was it that you were?
Yeah, that was my question. What was there a zeitgeist, and what because I have very strong ideas about 80s comics, and not necessarily themes in 80s comics, But definitely some things influenced
I
it.
think one of the strongest, like I said, I don't know a ton about 80s comics, but one of the strongest that come out in my mind, which I believe they were both published in the 80s, is Watchmen
Right. Yeah.
and The Dark Knight Returns.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And what do you remember about The Dark Knight Returns?
Again, there was this notion that crime was just completely fucking out of control, and you had a gang. Well, they're called the Mutants,
Right.
and they were just like a monstrosity that none of us could even imagine.
Right.
Like a science fiction ISIS or something.
Right.
You know, that there were just these monsters out there,
Right.
human monsters on the streets. And, you know, Batman at the time is retired. He's like 50 years old. And, you know, I love the way it was done in the comic book that, like, it's like this moral imperative, and you can see he's like having a panic attack, you know, because, like, at its heart, it's an identity issue. Like, how can I not do something about this? Even though he's an old man. And he comes back and starts becoming Batman again. He's kicking ass, and he says, "It's like I feel like I'm a man of 20 again." You know, like he is actually like living that very dangerous lifestyle and fighting crime. Just rejuvenates him and fills him with energy. It's like his calling in life.
Yeah,
like this is who he is.
Yeah.
So yeah, I love that comic.
Yeah. No, I think you know, it's interesting because like the 80s was, you know, it was the Generation X, right? It was like the lost generation. And I definitely, Frank Miller did that, right?
Yes.
Yes. And, you know, and Frank Miller's like, he's tackled, you know, like there's been a lot of, well, did he write it or did he just do the art on it?
I'm not sure.
Yeah. I mean, if you look, the idea of Batman is like not an old man. I mean, I'll be 50 next year. But you know, the like one of my favorite pieces of art when it comes to comic book art is a piece that Alex Ross did called Scars. And it is a black and white piece. It's a print or a lithograph or whatever. And it's Batman who's older, you know, probably close to 50, still very muscular, but has, you know, just a little bit of that, you know, middle-aged chub. You know what I mean? He's not lean, but he's just like, he's you know, still massive. But he's got his shirt off, he's looking in the mirror, and he's looking at all the scars down his back, which I think was first described, the scars on his back, in a comic like in the 70s maybe, or the 60s. Oh, really? It wasn't shown, it was just talked about, right? And so it just sort of shows the toll that his life has taken on him. And it's always interesting to this idea of, you know, it's sort of like the old man, the idea of like returning, you know, and also didn't he came back, but didn't he leave because Dick Grayson got killed or because Robin died?
I think that was part of it.
And it like kind of broke him.
Yeah.
You know?
I believe so.
Yeah. I was never really that big into DC. I know that like comics in the 80s started to get a bit darker. I will say that I think that one thing that influenced a lot of comics in the 80s were ninjas.
Oh yeah. Absolutely.
I mean, like people went crazy over Spider-Man's black costume because it wasn't like when it first came out. I don't even know if the writers knew at the time about the symbiotes. You know what I mean? At the time, it was just a black costume, and you didn't even find out how he got it until a few months later, because you had Amazing Spider-Man. Was it 82? I don't remember now. But it was in Amazing Spider-Man, and it was in Spectacular Spider-Man, which were released at the same time. And then about 4 months later, I think, it came out in Secret War number 8. But what happened in Secret War number 8, the timeline actually happened before, you know, the two X-Men. So it was just a new costume. And people lost their minds because ninjas were everywhere in the 80s. There were at least 30 or 40 ninja movies in the 80s.
Oh, easily.
You couldn't go into Black Belt magazine, which I don't even know if it's still around, but like Black Belt magazine always had Stephen Hayes, on its cover, who was like the modern American ninja guy, and Matsumi.
There were karate dojos opening all over the place.
Oh, but here's the thing: is they all taught ninja. Like, it was ninjutsu. It was Frank Duke's, blood sport, the kumite, because he, was trained in ninjutsu.
I love blood sport when I was.
But yeah. So I think.
What your brother? Remember?
So it's interesting because you had American Ninja and Enter the Ninja and Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, like ninjas. And so when we saw like Spider-Man's black costume, I think that's when Batman's costume changed, right? From the sort of the classic, TV costume to a more black. You know what I mean? So that was one of the things. When I'm thinking about arcs, like, I'm trying to think, like, what were some of the big arcs? Oh, there was death. There was. In fact, I think it was Amazing Spider-Man. I can't remember which issue, but one of the main characters was killed off by like a Duba shotgun, which was like unbelievable, and
like really killed off, like
killed off. Really killed off. And now when characters get killed off, it's like they get rebooted, or whatever, or it's a different timeline or whatever.
I wish they'd kill characters for real.
It would be interesting. But the thing, here's the thing. Maybe, but
they even brought Jason Todd back, and it was a cool series, Red Hood and all that. Like how they brought him back, like it was a good, well executed comic book.
Yeah.
But it's like I feel like it would have more dramatic impact if you actually killed characters.
Well, I think they kill characters now, but they kill them in a different timeline. They split it off. And like this isn't for Marvel 616. This isn't 616. This is whatever.
Like that's why I liked it when like Grant Morrison needed to get rid of Bruce Wayne for a while so that Dick Grayson could become Batman. Like that was the plot of the comic, and he didn't kill Bruce Wayne. He just had him like lost in time. So it's like okay, I accept that.
Sure.
You're not like jerking around the audience,
right?
You know it's coming back sooner or later.
Well, what happened with Captain America? I'm trying to remember why. Something similar happened to him, right? Well, that's why Samuel first became the Falcon. I think something.
I honestly don't know.
Something happened to Captain America. This actually might have been the 70s. This might not have been the 80s. I'm trying to remember. And then I think that Captain America just decided he didn't want to do it anymore. So then the Falcon became Captain America. But then, and this was a reflection of our times when you first started hearing about quotas and affirmative action, was that the leader of S.H.I.E.L.D., or the head of S.H.I.E.L.D., I think, approached, and it wasn't Nick Fury, it was somebody else. So maybe it wasn't the head of S.H.I.E.L.D. But somebody from S.H.I.E.L.D. approached, the new Captain America and said, hey, we like this look, and we want to keep you on because, we need you to fill a quota. And he was like so disgusted by being a token that he went back to being the Falcon. He didn't want to be a tokenized Captain America.
That's interesting that like in the comic there's like a rejection of that idea.
Oh yeah, 100%. And Captain America became Nomad for a while, I think. So if I remember right, I have to go back and read those.
Man, I have Nomad comics like from when I was.
Well, I think I'm gonna have to go back and read it. What else big happened? The Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles was massive. Like I don't know how it became so big so fast. Trying to think of what else. We had the Transformers. Oh, Power Pack, which you've never heard of Power Pack, have you? Power Pack was huge when I was like in my teens. It was a group of kids who encounter an alien, a dying alien, who I think that he was killed by if I can remember right, he was killed by other aliens. The ship was shot down, or whatever. But these kids encounter him, and he's got all these powers, and each kid like absorbs one power, right? So they're the Power Pack, and actually they just rebooted it, I think.
Really? So it's like there's some Captain Planet type stuff going on here?
I'm pretty sure it's getting licensed I'm pretty sure Disney's going to do a show because it's a kid-friendly, group. So yeah, Power Pack was really big when I was a kid. Atari Force was fun. I think it was. I mean, Daredevil was always like the death of Elektra. There's another one. And now she didn't stay dead. The hand brought her back, but the death of Elektra was huge at the time. It was just like you just didn't see stuff. You hadn't seen anything like that before. The Avengers kind of split. You had the West Coast Avengers form.
I think it was also that the audience of comic books was growing older. You had these now is at the point where it wasn't just like kids picking up comics for 25 cents.
Yeah, that's true. Well, comics got more expensive, so yeah. But it also...
Well, I mean that you had a whole generation of people who grew up reading comics, and now they're 20, 30, whatever.
Yeah, that's probably very true. And I think that people just wanted the stories. Like writers wanted to write. You know what I mean? Like when they wrote the Return of Dark Knight or whatever, like they wanted to write. Like they didn't want to do this episodic thing that they did in all these comics. Like they wanted to write. So
Jeremy here is saying the best 80s comics were Freak Brothers and Reed Fleming, World's Toughest Milkman.
I'm not familiar with either ones. And I used to collect some pretty obscure. I collected Badger, which so Badger, Nexus, I can't even remember what company put them out. Badger though was the best character. Have you ever seen The Mystery Men? It's with Ben Stiller and Janine Garofalo and
I don't think so.
So Ben Stiller. It's about this group of like kind of wannabe superheroes, right? When they're in a world where they're real superheroes, they got like these second-rate powers, like that. But Ben Stiller calls himself Mr. Furious, like I'm getting so mad. But the thing is, he wasn't really getting mad, and he wouldn't get any stronger. But that was his thing. It reminds me of Badger because Badger would lose his mind. He was sort of like a Wolverine type character, but just like he was psychotic. He was like, and the art was very graphic. So like when he would punch a guy, like teeth would be flying out and blood. I mean, he was just a lunatic.
One I loved when I was a kid was Preacher.
Oh yeah,
not a kid. I was 17 by the time I was reading that, but
yeah, Preacher. Yeah. Well, that's like Constantine, man. Constantine was so good. Was it Hellblazer to start with?
It may have been. I didn't read Constantine back in those days. Yeah.
Well, and The Watchmen, man. I mean, The Watchmen was just phenomenal. One of the things in The Watchmen will always stick with me was Rorschach when he was in jail, in prison.
Yeah.
When he's like, "You think I'm trapped in here with you?" It's like. It's just so good.
And the reveal in the comic, like Rorschach is built up to be like this big badass vigilante, like almost Batman type loner, and it turns out he's like the basement dwelling loser.
Yeah. And nobody of any particular significance whatsoever.
Right. And he's actually like before they reveal his identity, you see him earlier in the comic, and he's out like with his picketing sign, like the end is near.
Yeah. They pull a. No, I'm not gonna say that. I was thinking of a Fight Club kind of. They give you the flash.
The foreshadowing.
Yeah.
And by the end of the comic, like it's like mind blown.
Yeah. That was an amazing series. But see, that sort of went the same way as Gods Among Us, right? And that Ozymandias and Miracle, was it Miracle? No.
The Comedian?
No. The really powerful. Mr.
Fucking blue penis.
Yeah, Mr. Why isn't it coming to me? I keep on saying nuclear, but I know it's not. Mr. Manhattan?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Dr. Manhattan.
Dr. Manhattan. So, that they were doing what they thought was best for people, right?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, definitely. Well, the other thing too, I don't know if you knew this or not, is right now there's like the big thing. One of the big things that DC is trying to do is this big crossover where they're bringing Watchmen into the DC world, DC universe.
Really?
So like you get to see fucking like the comedian fight Batman and stuff like that, and like Owlman's in Gotham City and all that kind of stuff. It's the series is almost over. There's like 10 of the 12 that's out.
Okay.
And it is pretty good.
Is it good?
It's pretty good, yeah.
Did you have it?
Mm-hmm.
I'll have to read it.
Yeah. So for viewers out there, if you have any questions or comments, drop them in. We'll try to get to them.
Yeah, and it doesn't have to be about comics. It can be about anything.
I know. We meander. Is what we do.
And we're going to start bringing some guests in, people, whether it's, geek stuff or actual news stuff, we're going to kind of bounce back and forth on stuff if that's,
Yeah, and vary it up.
Yeah.
I think it's good to do it that way because all the worst stuff just gets fucking depressing, frankly.
Yeah.
But yeah, we're going to set things up to have a lot more guests coming on. I already got a lot of recommendations from people and other friends of mine that will get on.
How's the sound? Is it better than previous?
People are saying it sounds a lot better.
Good.
Yeah.
Good.
And the other thing I just wanted to say is please subscribe to the channel if you haven't. I know the sound has sucked the last couple episodes, but we're getting that fixed.
Yeah.
It's probably like 90% fixed. At this point, there's a few more things we can do. Hope you guys will consider subscribing to the channel. If you do, make sure you hit the bell notification so that you'll actually see when we go live. Otherwise, you only have like a 15-16% chance of actually getting a notification that we're doing this.
And unfortunately, we don't have sort of a set schedule or regular time yet, but we're working
set
on that now. Yeah.
As you can see, we're kind of like building an airplane while in flight.
Yeah.
So, thank you for bearing with us as we
For
iron
sure.
everything out.
Yeah.
We will figure out a schedule. The other thing I just wanted to point out is that we also have a Patreon page set up if you want to financially support the stream. And I'm going to post the link in the comments right now, and I'll put it in the description later too for you guys if you're interested in checking it out. I mean, thank you to everyone who's already supporting the stream. It's super cool. I think it's up to like $150 a month or something like that.
And look, all that money is going into the studio. You can see we have new sound blankets up. We went out and bought carpet, laid it down to help reduce bounce. We saw so many things that we want to do in here. And we're just doing it piece by piece because it's us funding it all. It's us. Yeah.
There is a third camera in here. We also have a fourth camera we're going to be setting up. So
yeah,
we got a lot of stuff going on. So if you're if you like what we're doing, please consider supporting the stream.
If you don't know what we're doing, join the crowd and
and if you just are along for the ride and want to watch, sometimes that's cool too.
Yeah.
Right now our goal is pretty much to get up to $850 a month, just because that'll pay the bills, pay for the rent, keep the lights on, pay for the internet, and at that point we'll be self-sustaining. So that's kind of our first goal, and we're using the money to put back into the studio and improving things here. So thank you for everyone who is supporting us, and thanks for viewing, thanks for watching.
Yeah, thanks guys.
Jeremy says, I gotta say I'm more a fan of the military history and current events more than all the
geek stuff.
That's okay. We'll talk about both. You guys give us a warning order before you go live, even like an hour or two would be great. Yeah, no, I understand, man. We'll come up with an actual time. It'll be this time, or we're thinking maybe doing it twice a week. So we'll actually iron out some actual times. So
and what we might do is, for those of you who are like far less interested in this kind of stuff or more interested in this stuff, then we might make, if we go twice a week, then
we'll do one where it's like a spotlight interview with somebody interesting, military veteran, special operations guy, somebody who's in the intelligence community, somebody who serves other sort of governmental service, or
just somebody who has some interesting insight maybe on news of today or whatever.
Right, like journalists, experts, policy experts, those sorts of people. I'm always very interested in as well. So yeah, like you said, maybe we'll do like 2 a week, and one will be more like hard news, and then the other will be more like us just bullshitting about, you know, the comic book movies we love and hate.
Yeah, or in Dungeons and Dragons. Well, maybe that'll be something else too.
Yeah. Someone's asking about the China trade war. I don't know what about it. It's a complicated subject. But I don't know, anything else, Dave, that you wanted to get into tonight?
No. Yeah, but do they specify what they want to know about the China trade?
No. Nope. Someone else said, have you read any Robert E. Howard books besides Conan? Like the Solomon Kane books? I don't think I have. I've read other Conan books by other authors, but I don't think I've read... Robert E. Howard also wrote quite a few boxing stories, like boxing short stories about boxers. He was an interesting character in of himself. He never traveled like more than like maybe 20, 25 miles from his home in Texas.
Really?
And the furthest he went was to go see boxing matches.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So, what else did he write? What else did he
wrote?
Write?
Solomon Kane.
Okay.
For sure. He wrote the short stories about boxing, and he might have had 1 or 2 other short-lived series that he wrote.
Was there anything that you recommend by him?
Jeremy was asking about it. What other Robert E. Howard material would you recommend? And then Antonio's asking about the Tom Clancy books. The only Tom Clancy book I think I read to completion was Rainbow Six.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
I was just never a real big military thriller, reader. I've been reading like fantasy science fiction since I was a kid, and so that's more. I didn't read a lot of military.
I'll tell you, I would love to go back and complete and finish reading all of H.P. Lovecraft and Robert E. Howard's stuff.
Yeah.
Since I've done a ton of reading since I got out of the military, but it's been like all kind of professionally oriented.
Right.
Reading tons and tons of nonfiction.
Right.
So it's very rare that I get to read like novels, and so I'm really happy to like read stuff like this, and that's just fun to read.
Yeah.
That's why I took when I went on vacation, I took these Injustice graphic novels with me, and just something fun to read for a change.
Lovecraft, I have a book. I have a collection. Lovecraft is hard to get through.
Yeah, it takes some time to actually get into the style of writing because it's different. It's not modern.
Right.
Yeah. Oh, Jeremy says Howard wrote a lot of Western stories.
Okay, no, actually I haven't.
What's the most interesting book you've read lately?
I don't know. Interesting book.
Well, I mentioned on the last stream, my friend Chuck Rogers wrote Bastard of the Apocalypse. You guys can go find it on Amazon if you want. I wrote a review of it too. Really good book. That was great.
What's that about?
It's post-apocalyptic.
See, I recently read a post-apocalyptic one too. I think it was called like 1 second after or 7 seconds after.
You're talking about the one where the EMP hits.
Yeah.
I read that.
Well, so it's not post-apocalyptic, but it still has that.
It's pretty apocalyptic.
Yeah, but it was good. I mean, it was I enjoyed it. It was basically, and I think the guy who wrote it, isn't he kind of an EMP specialist?
I don't know. I read the book when it came out.
Yeah, but it's essentially a book about an EMP attack on the United States and basically how people behave. There's not even an enemy involved except ourselves at that point, and it's pretty barbaric.
Yeah, he tried to make it quote unquote realistic.
Yeah.
Bastard of the Apocalypse it's a little bit more tongue in cheek.
Yeah.
The protagonist gets attacked by a zombie bear that has a huge erection, and it's just like charging through his house, and he's like shooting it with the M14, like, oh my god. So it's a little bit funner, I guess. In that sense.
For sure.
Okay. So I don't know, anything else, Dave, before we cut it for today?
I'm good.
All right, man.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah, thanks everyone for viewing. Again, check out our Patreon page if you kind of like the direction we're going in. If not, let us know in the comments. Tell
Sure.
us what you think we should improve. Again, it's a work in progress. And I guess we'll be back next week, huh?
For sure.
All right. All right, we'll see you guys then. I got to go walk over here and turn off the stream now. We can do like a Star Trek thing for you, Dave, where I like move the camera and it looks like, you're getting shot at.